Reflective Relational Leadership and Management. Hi, I'm Phil, a mental health nurse who works in safeguarding children and adults in the independent sector. I have a special interest in leadership, management, and strategic change. In health, safeguarding practitioners find themselves with statutory guidance, national guidelines, and the weight of numerous scandals highlighting how important leadership and working with others is in their role. But this comes with challenges, so I undertook a study capturing the experience of safeguarding leads in health for whom positional power is not always available. What are the challenges? The statutory guidance for safeguarding in health offers no position on leadership and management expectations for safeguarding roles. The safeguarding training in health is built on the intercollegiate documents, and existing safeguarding leadership and management courses assume practitioners have positional authority in the role, drawing only on generic theory. The intercollegiate documents describe named and designated practitioners as requiring the ability to provide expert, strategic and professional leadership, but fail to provide guidance on how to do so. This means that even if practitioners hold what French and Raven describe as expert power, neither the existing training or the intercollegiate documents offer useful theory or models for leading without hierarchical power. So safeguarding professionals are limited to existing leadership and management approaches which also don't take into account complex organisations without dedicated teams, safeguarding's position and structure being typically adjacent to the operational hierarchies, safeguarding roles undertaken on top of busy substantive posts, and the wider challenges of interagency, multi-agency, interprofessional or multi-professional working. Professionals may have well-tested leadership and management tools, but the clear need for improvement would suggest they're not always the right tools for the job. So we have to do better. Leadership in safeguarding means working with others, and numerous national scandals show how inadequate leadership potentially harms patients. Older leadership theories, popular in health such as distributed and situational leadership, don't always translate well to safeguarding, as they rely on power, and there's nothing out there that truly captures leading when you're not in charge. If we expect safeguarding practitioners to be leaders, or leaders to recognise their accountability and responsibility for safeguarding, then they deserve training and supporting theory that's fit for purpose. Health can be proud of how it uses research to inform practice, but we've got a blind spot for leadership in safeguarding. This must be addressed for our colleagues and for those we support. So building on the experiences shared by the participants in my study, the findings allowed me to develop a new reflective relational model for leadership and management. 3 major themes were identified through the analysis. I spent many hours manually processing 1,242 codes from over 56,000 words of interview transcripts. These were reduced into 612 focus codes, 23 potential themes or sub-themes, into 5 and then finally 3 themes. These are best summarised as power, relationships, and the training or support required to be effective in the role. Leads with positional authority spoke about preferring not to use it, instead using the strength of relationships as the preferred source of power. Equally, those without positional authority are limited to using relationships or having to borrow power to be effective. The different sources of power identified by leads can be aligned with the definitions provided by French and Raven and Hersey et al., leading to a concise reflection of the sources of power in safeguarding. Positional power. So being someone's boss allowed them to use reward, coercive and legitimate power, but also participants understood that connections, holding information and being the expert gave them power. Specific to safeguarding, statutory powers are also identified as a source of legitimate power. Relationship power. The use of relationships was either built on referent power, being seen as the expert, or the power of connection. And newer models of leadership, such as compassionate leadership, fit nicely into this area. Participants made it clear though that in health we can't always make and maintain relationships with such a transitory and temporary workforce. So whilst this is the preferred source of power, sometimes the situation necessitates using positional authority instead. The third theme, training and support. Participants clearly reflected that safeguarding training rooted in the intercollegiate documents doesn't translate into leadership skills. And those who had undertaken leadership and management training reflected that it doesn't support safeguarding roles, with or without positional authority in their substantive posts. In fact, the only transferable approach from training discussed was reflective leadership. The importance of reflection, both individually and reflective supervision, was repeatedly echoed by the participants, alongside needing managers that you could borrow authority from and who understand the importance of your work. So I needed to offer a solution. Using a constructivist grounded theory approach for the research supported the development of a model that captures the constant interplay between three themes, where each aspect is dependent on the other. A recognisable model to build upon is the intervention pyramid, familiar from its use in public health approaches where risk informs the level of response and primary interventions are an ongoing foundation. Primary, secondary and tertiary responses can be renamed as proactive, active and reactive, as this fits nicely with an individual response instead of wider provision. To this effect, training is positioned in the model alongside reflection as an ongoing proactive intervention and foundation of practice, supporting relationships, professional identity, recognition of hierarchy, responsibility and accountability, which influence the requirement for active or reactive responses. The questions we'd reflect on are: what's the risk? This informs a proportionate and timely response. What's my role? What's everyone else's role? Who holds accountability and responsibility? What are the challenges? What differences must be overcome? What sources of power are available to me? What's the most appropriate one to use in response to the risk or situation? And what training is required to support those involved? Relationships are then the preferred active response. Here we ask ourselves, do I have a relationship with those involved? Can I use these relationships as a source of power? And is the strength of these relationships enough to navigate the recognised differences? This use of relationships as an active approach aligns nicely with compassionate and transformational leadership. A core tenet of the reflective relational approach is being kind, and it goes without saying that the active use of relationships is intended to mean supportive relationships built on compassion and kindness, not those built on the use of authority. So the use of positional power is a last resort. As identified, there are numerous sources of power, and different practitioners will naturally employ the ones available to them at this stage. For some practitioners, this might mean borrowing power from those with positional authority to be effective in your role. The model is an approach. It doesn't prescribe the leadership or management style when using positional power, and this gives flexibility for people to use their own preferred approach when needed, be it transformational, transactional, situational, the list goes on. The research also identified that Schoen's reflective model was well suited for inclusion to ensure continuous reflection, something all participants highlighted the importance of. Most reflective cycles begin after an event, but by adopting both reflection in action as a proactive approach and a constant of practice, then reflection on action, this ensures that practitioners are always engaged in a process that improves practice and supports personal growth. Similarities to situational leadership theory are evident in that the practitioner must assess the situation and adapt their approach accordingly. However, instead of requiring an understanding of a colleague's motivation and needs, with the assumption of holding the authority to respond accordingly, practitioners are expected to continually reflect on the risk and challenges of the task itself, adapting to use the power available to them. The simplified model allows for interpretation and adaptation by leaders and managers in areas other than safeguarding in health. The reflective relational approach does not require hierarchical authority. The model supports relationships as the primary source of power and doesn't mandate that leaders have expert power, as despite an assumption by others, the overwhelming reflection regarding training was that it's not as informative as practical experience, something that not all leaders or managers will have in the early stages of their careers. I hope that this new model resonates with safeguarding practitioners across health, potentially leaders and managers across wider systems too. And whilst developed for safeguarding, it could easily be adapted for other areas where the challenge of leading when you're not in charge is present, or simply for leaders and managers who are committed to a kinder, more compassionate and reflective style that commits to better outcomes through personal growth and better relationships.